So, how does a dude with no connection to Puerto Rico end up in Puerto Rico and not be a tax evader, gentrifier, whatever? It's pretty bizarre, but listen, Puerto Rico was never on my radar in life. It wasn't a place I ever had planned to go, visit. Heck, I mean, truth is, first time I ever heard about Puerto Rico in my whole life was back in 1998 when I was in a school play for West Side Story. Apologies, I've got a cold at the moment, so I'm feeling I feel like ass at the moment, but that's alright, I'm still going to work today. So anyway, I was going to play for West Side Story, play one of the main characters. It was so long ago, but that was my first encounter with Puerto Rico. And then, but I mean, the fact is, most people in Australia wouldn't have a clue where Puerto Rico is. A lot of people wouldn't be able to find it on a map. It's just not that well known. So the politics, the situation, and the life in Puerto Rico, no one really knows much about it over there. Really want to get outside the US. Not many people know much about Puerto Rico. How I came to... Truth is, I wasn't looking for Puerto Rico. It found me. So, a rundown of the story. So back in 2017, I went on I just come out of a relationship and I was just had a lot of things going on and I was just kind of like over everything. So I said, yeah, fuck it. I'm jumping on a plane and I'm going back to Greece again for, I don't know, I said about 2 weeks. I just started a new job and I told my boss I'm going. He goes, yeah, fine. How long do you want to go for? I'm like, I don't know, 2 weeks. Yeah, fine, no problem. I've only been in the job for like a month or so. He didn't give two shits, which is great. So I bought tickets 2 weeks before to Athens and then to Rhodos, back to our island. So I spent a couple of days in Athens and went up to Meteora and then flew over to Rhodos and went back to the village where my family comes from, and I was going to spend a week there. And I don't know, I didn't really have a distinct plan. I was just going to go for 2 weeks, hang around and see what happened. So I met this girl from, this blonde-haired girl from the US, and I'm like, what's she doing here? So her dad's from the same village. She's there with her father. He was born in the same village. Her family, my family are interconnected. So we basically bonded, and within a week I flew on a plane back to the US to spend 2 weeks with her, and all unplanned. I was like, yep, let's just do it. One decision will change your life, sort of thing. So she was always talking about Puerto Rico and how much she loved the place and that, but it's like, yep, cool. So afterwards I went back to Australia. I honestly didn't think I was going to see her again, and then fate happened pretty quickly. She made the decision to abandon her whole life in the US and fly to Australia to come live with me. She came at a pretty tumultuous time. My mum dying of cancer at that time, so she came like a month before she died. So we came and I was like, well, listen, let's just do it. Let's just get engaged, get married. I mean, fuck, we barely knew each other. So in a nutshell, we were engaged and married within 1 year, just a bit over 1 year since we met. We met July 25th. Yeah, so we were married 3 days. We were married 3 days shy of when we met. We got married back in Rhodes, Greece, where we come from. And so we came back to the US, and then we were going to move to New York, and well, we decided quickly, no way. So we stayed with her mum. We ended up buying a house in Suffield, Connecticut. That ended up turning into what was going to be 3 months, turned to 3 years of me burying my life, then the pandemic. And I remember one day I was like, we'd moved into the house when it was under construction during the pandemic, and I was outside and I was doing garden work. I mean, the house was a massive undertaking for one person. Not quite as big as this one, but pretty damn big. And so I said to myself, I'm outside and I'm doing some yard work, and I'm watching one neighbour, he's on his ride-on lawnmower. Another neighbour, he's got his weed whacker out, and I looked at it and I'm like, I turn around and go inside and go, Kristen, fuck this. I cannot live in suburbia. Look, for me, I'm a city boy. I grew up in the city. I lived in a city centre in a penthouse apartment for a good chunk of my life, above a KFC store for a part of it. And then at one point I put a giant TV screen on my house. So that's another story I'll tell you about another time. So, I wasn't used to living in a suburbia, and I hate it. I'm looking at these people, like, these people got miserable, boring lives. What the hell are they doing? I said to her, honey, we're moving to Puerto Rico. Now, just a bit of a backstory. We did a trip to Puerto Rico 2019 for New Year's to 2020, and we actually encountered the earthquake, and that was my first time in Puerto Rico. I'm like, wow, this place is pretty cool. I could live here. Didn't know much about Puerto Rico, but it's like, yeah, I could live here. Outside of my stepfather-in-law being Puerto Rican, me eating, like, habichuelas and that daily, I didn't know much about Puerto Rico, and the Puerto Ricans in Hartford I was probably mostly around, so that's my encounter with Puerto Rico at that point. So I go inside and say, Kristen, honey, fuck this, can't do this, can't live here, no way, no, I cannot do this, let's just move to Puerto Rico. She's like, okay, let's do it. So I'm, alright, the election's coming up in November, we're going to set the deadline to have the house done by the election time. So I went like a crazy man from like June to August, September, October, working like crazy trying to finish this house off, not aware that it was still another year's worth of work. I was crazy, man. I just want to get out of Connecticut. I want to get out of the US. I just can't stand this. And then it's like, oh my God, we're pregnant, baby. Okay, fine. So we went through a year, which we actually ended up still getting the house basically finished. We had the baby, and then it's like, all right, done. We're selling up. We're going. So we sold up the house. We basically finished it, put it on the market, and came on the plane here with a 7-month-old with no real plan or anything. A couple of suitcases, some tools that I brought over, and that was it. And it's like, all right, what are we going to do? We didn't really have a distinct plan. So we got here. The first few months was pretty tough adjusting. There was a lot of things we just had to get used to. The weather was tough, and then we really couldn't. Well, house hunting, and we just couldn't find anything that was within the price range. Like the prices had gone up hugely, and we couldn't find anything that we could actually really nothing we could afford other than complete wrecks. And I at the time was adamant. I'm not doing this again. I'm not putting myself through hell to build another house again to live in. And then this house in Fortuna come up, and it's like, well, we either abandon ship in Puerto Rico and we move to Greece, or we stay here, and it's like, we're just going to root and settle. So it's like, what, let's buy this house, let's do it. And we did it. And that's pretty much the nutshell. There was no real great plan how we came to Puerto Rico. So